Welcome to episode 4 of my 7-part YouTube video series, where I'm sharing with you my experiences of spending about 10 months of a year seeing the world on cruise ships as a passenger. That's right, I had the crazy idea to pack up my life here in the UK, put all of this into storage, get on a flight and go and see the world. I even took a sabbatical from my corporate world job to do it. Now that I'm back, I'm sharing everything in this 7-part video series. Today, this is episode 4, but before we get into that, let's recap on what we've covered so far. And don't worry, you can find the links to all of my other videos down in the description of this one. In episode 1, I shared with you the route that I took, in addition to which ships took me on that route. I then moved on to look at the monetary or the financial side. In other words, how could I even afford to do a trip like this? In episode 2, I then moved on to look at the ships, which was my favourite ship, which was my least favourite ship, and also what have I learnt about the cruise industry overall after spending such a long time at sea. Episode 3, I then moved on to look at cruise ship accommodation, or cabins or staterooms, depending on which cruise line you're used to, because they all call them slightly different things. That's right, the rooms that I booked while on board. I shared with you my favourite cabin, my least favourite cabin, and also the most unique cabin that I found while out at sea. I also covered a number of different things that I do every single time I check into a new cruise ship cabin, and hopefully there was something there that you might just take on your next cruise. Today, we are covering the topic of homesickness. Whether you're travelling for a day, a week, a month or a year, you might feel homesick at some point. And before we start on anything today, please know that that's okay. If you happen to be watching this video today because you're travelling, you feel a bit down, and you've just found this on YouTube, then that's absolutely fine. What I'm going to share with you in this video is 10 things that I reflected on as I went through the year. And these 10 things really helped me to ease the symptoms of homesickness, and hopefully passing them on to you today might just do the same. But before we get into that list of 10 things, I did want to say that if you enjoy this video, then please do support my channel by clicking the thumbs up button. It would also be great if you would come along on so many more adventures with me. You can do that simply by clicking the subscribe button. Anyway, let's get started on number 1. Number 1, think about taking a couple of home comforts with you. Now, I covered this in my last video, so apologies if you've already watched that, but when I went travelling, I took a number of different things that reminded me of home, and every time I saw them, I would smile and it would make my day that little bit better because it reminded me of everyone back home. Up first, a couple of my friends and family wrote cards and letters before I went away that I could then open while I was on my travels. I made a point of every single cruise ship cabin that I would go into, I would display them on a shelf that I could look at every single day. I found such comfort in that, and please don't underestimate the sheer value of being able to look at something and remember a memory or a person or a time. It really helped me. The other example I would give is that I took a tiny little Christmas bauble onto the ships with me that I would then display in my cabin as we approach Christmas. Christmas for me is such a special time of year, and to be really honest, it's the part of the year that I missed home most because I just want to be back at home, surrounded by everyone that I know and care about in the build up to Christmas. So even having that one little bauble was such a nice memento of what I was actually cruising back to, because I finished travelling right before Christmas. So yes, number 1, think about taking some home comforts with you. In my case, cards and a bauble. 2, if you're looking at cruising long term, you might want to think about a Wi-Fi package because it can sometimes be worth the investment simply to stay connected. Now, if you've ever taken a cruise before, you will know that Wi-Fi can be super expensive. It's one of the main reasons why when I go on a cruise, I often don't stay connected now, because sometimes it can even cost up to 25 or 30 US dollars per day to be connected. I know, and that's often not even the best Wi-Fi package. The prices are so high. Now, there are some things that you can do to get around cruise ship Wi-Fi packages. For example, buying travel sims, buying like other routers that you can connect, but I don't use them, so I can't recommend them. But what I would say is that if you are thinking you might get homesick and you want to maintain that connection with those at home, then cruise ship Wi-Fi might be of use. Now, don't worry, you don't have to buy a Wi-Fi plan that covers every single day of your cruise, because that will be super expensive if you are cruising for a long time. What I did was I would work out how to get Wi-Fi every couple of days. That would mean that sometimes I would commit an hour of one of my port days where I knew there would be a good Wi-Fi connection to speak to people back home. And then if there was a period of 2 or 3 days or longer where the ship would either be at sea or I didn't know the port, so I couldn't count on there being Wi-Fi, I would then look to buy a 24-hour Wi-Fi pass, which you can buy on the majority of the cruise ships out there nowadays. This massively helped me because I then knew in my head that every 2 or 3 days I would be able to check in with people back home. In terms of how you can find out if the ports that you're visiting have got Wi-Fi, it's as simple as searching for them on Google. I was amazed that even searching for the port I went to in Costa Rica, I was able to see that there was high-speed internet available in the terminal building. So if you are looking at either cruising long-term or maybe you're going away for a shorter trip, just search for your cruise ports and your cruise terminals on Google, and you might just find that you can save yourself a fortune by not paying the full price for cruise ship Wi-Fi and just paying every couple of days. Number 3, and this is one that I probably struggled with more than I thought at the time, and that is, think about the things that you're going to miss while you're travelling, and think if there's any way that you could be involved in them from wherever you are in the world. Now, in order to explain this properly, I want you to think back to the times of, I hate saying it, but COVID. Do you remember after lockdown restrictions lifted and people could socialise again, but you maybe couldn't travel, or maybe you didn't feel comfortable enough travelling, and things were happening back home or where some of your friends were around the world, but you couldn't be there? Well, that's when the world went digital, and suddenly people were live streaming weddings, people had digital connections to birthday parties, people were having drink catch-ups, but on Skype. There's loads of ways that you can communicate and you can socialise with your friends and family without being there in person. There was an example of when I was travelling that it was actually my nephew's christening back in Scotland, and I wasn't able to be there because I was on ships, but actually the church then recorded the christening and I could watch it after, which was such a comfort to me and something that, had I not had a laptop with an internet connection, I wouldn't have been able to do. So yeah, think about anything you're going to miss, whether it's wedding, birthday, whatever. Think about how you can be there without actually being there. Number 4, and this one might sound strange, but if you're thinking of how to combat homesickness, one of the best ways around it is to plan to go home. Now, I don't mean drop your travel plans and suddenly go back home, but the way that I planned my trip was I did it in 3 phases, and each of those phases covered a different part of the world. And what I did in between was I went home. So I went home for the summer holiday for a number of reasons, but I had a few commitments in the UK, and also cruise ships are so busy in summer, so I thought I'll go home. It'll be far more calm there than being on the ships during the peak season. I then, in October, came back to the UK again for my dad's birthday and got to spend about a week and a half in the country then. And both of those trips were just enough to really appease any symptoms of homesickness from being too severe as I went through the year. So yeah, if you are travelling for a long time, is there anywhere in your itinerary that you can plan to be home or be with people somewhere else in the world that you care about that might make the whole experience a lot easier. Number 5, let's talk food and drink. Are there any food or drink items that remind you of home and almost give you a home comfort? In which case, plan to either take them with you or figure out where you can buy them. One example that I have is that I love to travel with Scottish tablet, which is a type of candy from Scotland that every time I eat it, it takes me back to being a child. In fact, I have a bar of tablet on this desk right now. I absolutely love it. And when you're in the middle of Costa Rica on a cruise ship, it's so cool to go back to your cabin, have a bit of tablet, and just crack on with the day. It's brilliant. Another example I have is that I love McDonald's coffee in the UK, and I find that that brand of coffee tastes pretty similar, if not the same, wherever I've had it in the world, which is something that I can't say for example, Starbucks. I don't know why, but McDonald's coffee always seems to taste the same. Now, if I'm in the middle of New York, or Los Angeles, or Sydney in Australia, or London in the UK, I always really enjoy popping into a McDonald's to get a really good value coffee that tastes great and it reminds me of home. So these little things don't have to break the bank. I'm not saying that you have to go to a fancy restaurant that specialises in the food from the part of the world you come from. It's not that at all. Think back to the little memories that you have. I probably love a McDonald's coffee because it fueled me through university during my late nights cramming, studying in the library. And it's a flavour that's stuck with me for so many years. So yeah, think about what it is that you love and what invokes a little bit of a memory, and see if that's something that you could either take with you or something that you could buy around the world as you travel. Number 6, think about writing a journal or maybe recording a video diary to keep people updated, and most importantly, to give you someone to talk to. This one in my example was super easy because, in case you haven't figured, I downloaded all of my thoughts and feelings constantly on all of you right here on YouTube. However, not everyone is fortunate enough to have a YouTube channel with people there who they can talk to, and it's so important that you have somewhere that you can just download your thoughts. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go and start a YouTube channel or start a TikTok account or start something really new. Just go and buy a journal, buy a notepad and a pen, and then just scribble down what your thoughts and feelings and what you did that day. Now, that is not only great for helping you to get rid of some of that out of your head, it's also absolutely brilliant to look back on. I use my YouTube channel to share with the world all of my experiences on all of these cruise ships, but I also keep a diary that not too many people know about, and in fact no one has ever read my diary from when I travel. So yes, it's under lock and key. I never want anybody to read it because to me it's such a private thing where I would write down every night before I went to bed what I did that day, what I enjoyed about the day, what I didn't enjoy about the day, and how I was feeling and what I was going to do tomorrow. And looking back on it now, honestly, it is so heartwarming to look back on day 203 of that 10-month window and think what I was getting up to, because as soon as I read it, it takes me right back to sitting on my bed in that cabin, filling it in. So yes, number 6, think about writing a journal. Number 7, if you're cruising long term and you want to combat homesickness, think about making new friends. Cruise ships are fantastic places to socialise, and they are brilliant environments to meet new people from all over the world. If you're in a situation like I was, where you book onto back-to-back cruises, so after one cruise, you stay on the ship when most people leave and you do the next cruise, and then at the end of that, you stay on the same ship while most people leave and you do another cruise, and so on and so forth. What is lovely about that is that sometimes every week or every few days, all of the people around you change. Now, I can be a little bit introverted, but I'd say generally speaking, I'm quite an extrovert. So I really love going to a dining room on a cruise ship and, if I'm in the mood, sharing a big table where I can get to hear loads of different people's stories of, where have they been in life? Why did they pick that cruise? How many cruises have they done? What is the best part of the world they've seen? And it's amazing that after spending such a long time at sea, I have now met hundreds of people around the dinner table, and it's an amazing experience. So yes, consider making new friends. You can do that by going on a shared dining table. You can also do that by going to various meetups on board. Maybe you are a solo traveller and you'd like to meet other solos. You can do that by going to, most cruise lines will offer a solo traveller meetup that you can go to. Maybe you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, in which case you can go along to a meetup that, again, most cruise lines will offer. There's a whole host of different meetups on loads of different cruise lines. So if you are looking to meet people on board to hopefully help combat the feeling of homesickness, because if nothing else, it's great to have someone to talk to about it, then open yourself up and think about making some new friends while you're away from home. Number 8, and this one is arguably one of the most important ones in this list. Homesickness is a really real emotion, and it's something that you need to really pay attention to when you're travelling. But my 8th tip today is that you have to remember to spend some time looking after numero uno, aka you. Now, when I travel, if I feel homesick, I make sure that I have a number of different things that I can do to make myself feel better. I know that I absolutely love, if it's warm outside, going for a run. And that totally clears my head and allows me to then continue with the rest of the day rather than being really bogged down and constantly thinking about it. So I can use the running track on a cruise ship, or I can leave the ship and run on land if it happens to be on a day that we're docked in port. I also can use the spa because I love going to a thermal suite and using the saunas and the steam rooms and bobbing in and out the hydro pool. There's a whole host of things that you can do on cruise ships. Now, yes, it's important to know that when you feel homesick, how do you pick yourself back up? But what I really mean by looking after yourself is that try and treat yourself as you go through your travelling journey to hopefully put yourself in just a better headspace and a better state of welfare so that when you do feel homesick and if you do feel a bit down, it's a lot easier to pick yourself back up because you've been looking after yourself, you've been investing time in yourself, and you're, most importantly, feeling good about yourself. So yes, number 8, think about how you can look after you. Number 9, and you might not like this one, but you have to accept that it's absolutely fine to miss home, and it's okay to just feel a little bit rubbish. I get it. I've had days where I've woken up on cruise ships and I've just sat in my cabin before going to breakfast thinking, do you know what? I'd just like a little cry right now before I go out and start the day because because I really miss home and that'll make me feel better. And do you know what? That's absolutely fine to do. Now, while that's fine, you also need to reflect on my last point and think about how you can make yourself feel better. Whether it's the spa, whether it's going and exploring the city, whether it's going outside and phoning home, whatever you need to do to make yourself feel better, make sure that you're acutely aware of these things before you feel homesick so that you have, in a way, a list of things that you can go and look at to work your way through and just lift your headspace up from this really bogged down feeling homesick. But yes, number 9, as much as you might not want me to say it, is that it's absolutely fine to miss home. It happens to everyone. And what's most important is how you make yourself feel better. Number 10, the final thing on our list today of bits of advice that I would give you to help curb the feeling of homesickness is think about if there's any way that the people that you know and the people that you care about could maybe come and join you on your adventure. do not worry. Do not worry. I'm not going to say that you need to take your parents on holiday with you or you need to take your children away with you. But is there any way that for a few days or for a few weeks, people that you know could come and join you? So the example that I would give is that when I was cruising solo long term, I often found that I would be paying quite a large solo supplement, meaning that I wouldn't only be paying my fare, but I'd be paying a penalty as a result of being solo. That penalty sometimes meant I was paying for the second person that wasn't going to be in the cabin. That then got me thinking, were there any of my friends or any of my family back home who could maybe come, share my cabin, pay that fare, and therefore I would get the benefit of, yes, fine, saving a bit of money, but also a bit of company that week. Fine, the way it worked out, we couldn't actually do it for a number of different logistical reasons, but the thought was there, and actually it's something I didn't realise that you could even do, where you could just phone a cruise line and add a second passenger to your booking. Fine, you'll have to look at fares and capacity on the ship, blah, blah, blah. But generally speaking, if you've already paid a solo supplement because you're in a cabin designed for 2 travellers, you're usually absolutely fine to tweak the booking to bring a second passenger in there. You just have to make sure that you speak with your travel agent or you speak with your cruise line at the point of booking, just to make sure that they have a working relationship where that could be possible. The example that I had was that my best friend from the UK came out and joined me for a week over on a ship that was sailing out of Barcelona. Now, while that ship did feature on one of my probably less enjoyed ships of my sabbatical during one of my other episodes, one thing that was absolutely amazing was getting Laura over to just spend a bit of time with someone that I wasn't really planning to see very much over my journey at all. And that definitely helped to stop me feeling homesick because I could have my best pal out in Europe with me for a week and it was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, number 10, think about if there's any way that some of your friends or some of your family could come and join you for some or part of your adventure. And that's it. That is my 10 bits of advice that I would give to you if you're planning to either cruise or travel and you're worried about feeling homesick. Just remember, it's such a real emotion. Everybody feels it sometimes, even if they say they don't, and it's totally okay if you do feel that you're a little bit down, as long as you know how to pick yourself back up. That covers episode 4 of this 7-part series, which leads me on to what we're going to cover in episode 5. Episode 5 is going to answer some of the biggest questions about my whole trip, which was how exactly do you plan to do something like that? How do you pick the ships? How do you plan the route? How do you pack up your life on land to go and head out onto ships? And what do you have to think about? Think about things like insurance, flights, so on and so forth. We're going to cover all of it in the next video. So make sure, if you're not already, you click subscribe and you'll be notified when that video goes live. But all I have to say for now is a massive thank you for watching this video. It really means the world to me to see this channel grow day by day, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this video today. So thank you so much, and I will hopefully see you in my next video.